All right. So good morning, everybody. Thank you so much, Christy, for that very kind introduction. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody. So my name is Craig Stein. I'm here with my co-founder, Mariel Diaz. We're co-founders of a company called The Hired Executive. As Christy was saying, it's an 8-week individualized coaching program with multiple coaching experts to help fast track executives back into the workforce. We also work with senior military who've just spent 20 or 25 years in the military and now want a civilian position. And so we help them transition as well. Mariel Diaz is not only a co-founder, but she's also our mindset coach. And she has a wonderful program created for this community this morning. So I'm going to pass it over to Mariel and let her say hello. Mariel?
Hi, thank you so much for having us today. So today I'm here to speak with you guys about mindset, particularly mindset as it relates to being in transition. So my style as a presenter is actually to be quite interactive. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of context, and then we're actually going to have a conversation about mindset. Mindset work is just like physically working out. You can think about working out. You can watch workout videos, but unless you get into the gym and actually work out, not a whole lot is going to happen. Mindset work doesn't really seem like rocket science, but a lot of times people struggle with the application of it to their specific situations. So I want you guys to be prepared to interact with me. I'll give you a little bit of context. We'll talk about a few of the tools that I teach, and then we're going to go through some specific situations. So I want you guys to be thinking about right now things that are stressing you out, difficult situations that you've encountered. They can be personal. They can also be related to career. If there's been any issues with interviewing or just thoughts, feelings about the job search process, we can tackle some of those. So this is going to be much more valuable to all of you if you bring some specific situations in. So be thinking about that as I go through the material. I have a short PowerPoint that I'm going to share with you guys that we'll go through. Do I have permission to share on the Zoom call? Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. Okay, can everybody see the presentation? Okay. All right, so who here has done mindset work before? Okay, great. So it's something that you guys are familiar with. So mindset work is really important when it comes to the job search process. We tend to think that the strategy around getting on LinkedIn, applying for jobs, going on interviews is what lands a job, but actually the mindset is the engine that drives all of the other actions. So it's really important to have some tools and techniques to manage your mindset. Oftentimes, the mindset issues that arise for people when they're in transition really occur in the background music of their minds. So it might not be some things that's so obvious that you notice, but it has to do more with the thought process that you're having, even in the moments where you're not actually on LinkedIn or reaching out or networking. One of the things I see a lot with our clients is the mindset issues can really come up before and after interviews. So it's not unusual after an interview, somebody will start dissecting what happened during that interview and being very self-critical. I wish I would have said that. When they asked this question, I wish I would have had this response. If only I would have said this, then I would have gotten invited to the next round of interviews. And this is where I really want us to focus our conversation today, is actually in the specifics of what comes up for you as you're working through these mindset issues. Because mindset work actually isn't really all that valuable if we stay high level and theoretical. It's much more valuable to you if we get into the specifics of how it's creating some challenges for you. One thing that's really important to be aware of with mindset work, most of you are probably already familiar with this, is there's two schools of thought with mindset. One is that we have a fixed mindset. So we're stuck with what we have. We're stuck with our talents and abilities as they are. And then the other school of thought is that we can have a growth-oriented mindset. Typically, people are oriented towards one of these or the others. However, a growth mindset is absolutely something that can be cultivated. You are not stuck exactly as you are. A job search transition time is actually a wonderful time to be developing new skills, to build some more cognitive flexibility in your thinking. So you absolutely can work on cultivating a growth mindset, even if you've been feeling a little bit more fixed in your mindset. And that's one of the benefits of doing daily mindset work. It helps to create flexibility in the thought process. It helps with emotion regulation, so you can deal with the ups and downs. Being in transition oftentimes causes quite a bit of stress. Even when it's chosen transition, it can still cause quite a bit of stress, right? And that stress can show up physically, mentally, emotionally, and financially as well. So we want to have different skills and tools that we can use to shift our thoughts, which then shift our feelings, which then can shift our actions. One of the primary tools that I teach all of our clients is this tool called the triangle. I want to invite all of you to write this down. I'm going to explain in detail what it is. When you look at it, it seems overly simplistic. This is a tool that will actually change your life if you commit to using it. And it's not just going to change your life with your job search process, it will change everything in your life. That's how powerful this tool is. I've been teaching this tool for about 20 years, and it's a tool that I use myself on a near daily basis. So the concept of this is that any situation or circumstance that we encounter starts to trigger automatic thoughts. So when you do this triangle, you write the word thoughts at the top of the triangle, and then you're going to write down the specific thoughts that you're having. Oftentimes, these thoughts tend to be more on the negative side, and they're automatic thoughts. You're not thinking about what you're thinking, so you can have a positive thought. A situation or circumstance occurs, and there's an automatic reaction of thoughts. So in this first version of the triangle, that's what we're trying to capture, those natural automatic thoughts that come up. Those thoughts then create feelings. Oftentimes, we're not aware of what feelings are getting created. So this process is very fast, and you don't even know that it's happening. So situation occurs, you have negative thoughts. Those negative thoughts can start to create feelings. And our clients that go through the hired executive, a lot of times what I see in the feelings category for people are things like worry, doubt, fear, anxiety. Sometimes after an interview, we'll even see shame if somebody's being really hard on themselves about their performance. So the thoughts create feelings, and then the feelings that we have actually create our behaviors. And with the behaviors, it's really important to notice that behavior is not always outwardly oriented. In fact, a lot of times the behavior that we can see in our clients has a lot to do with ruminating thoughts. So again, with the interview example, playing it over and over and over and over again in one's mind and dissecting it, or finding, things for the inner critic to really latch onto. And then that creates more negative thoughts. Things like, oh, they're never going to call me back for the next interview, which then starts to create more anxiety, which then can create more rumination. So this tool is meant to be written down. And at the top of it, you would write the word situation. And so the way to apply this is to find one personal situation in your life and then one career-related situation in your life every single day, and start tracking thoughts, the feel created by those thoughts, and the behaviors then do. It's important to notice you're not writing down what you would do, what you think you should do. You're writing down what actually happens. And so this tool can be a little bit confronting at times. It can make you notice certain patterns that you have that you don't feel great about, or that even feel pretty uncomfortable for you. So this tool is not meant to be used to beat yourself up. It's meant to be used to give you an honest self-assessment as to where your thought patterns are at, where your emotional state is at, and how well you're doing with aligning your actions with your goals. When you want to find a new job, your thoughts, your feelings, and your actions all need to come into one line to be able to create that outcome, right? So if you're taking the outward oriented action of getting on LinkedIn, going to networking events, building relationships with people, going on interviews, but you have a bunch of negative thoughts and feelings and behaviors operating in the background, you may still get the result of the new position that you're looking for, but it will take you exponentially longer. One of the things that we pride ourselves on at the Hired Executive is helping people shorten that time period from when they're looking for a position to landing their next great opportunity. And the mindset work is a key component of doing that because it keeps you mentally sharp, mentally strong, and it helps you to see opportunity instead of challenge. One of the things I teach all of our clients is to take any challenge that they encounter through the job search process, use this tool and boomerang it around into an opportunity. So if we can train ourselves to create opportunity out of challenge, it helps us to move through the process much faster. I want to pause here for a moment. Does anybody have questions about this tool?
Rob has an inquiry in the chat, Mariel.
Oh, okay. Hang on. I don't see the chat. 1 second. So actually, Craig, would you mind reading it to me? Because when I'm in screen share mode, I actually can't see the chat.
Okay, great. So it says, Rob said, Rob, what's your last name? Jacques?
Jakes, actually.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. So do you always start with the thoughts, or can you start with what you're feeling or what you're doing?
Great question. So this tool is designed to start with thoughts. Many people, though, can find it easier to start with feelings. So I want you to start with whatever you're aware of. You can't do it wrong. Okay, so the thoughts create feelings, feelings create behaviors, behavior creates thoughts, but it works in both directions. So if you're aware of, oh my gosh, I'm really angry right now, start there and then reverse engineer and ask yourself the question, okay, what was just going on? What circumstance or situation just happened? What am I thinking about that situation? And in response to this anger, what am I wanting to do? So yes, you can start with feelings instead of thoughts if that's easier for you. It's a good question.
Yeah, that was the only question in the chat.
Okay, great. So when you use this tool, you do it twice. The first time is to capture just the natural reaction to the situation, right? So your automatic thoughts without censoring yourself, without trying to change anything. The second time you use this tool, and I want you guys to write this down so you have this, you ask yourself the question, what's a healthier way I can think about this? Or what's a more empowering way I can think about this? And then you run through the triangle again. So this is where we actually start trying to change these thoughts. The key here is to not go. So although it's helpful in the job search process to maintain a sense of being optimistic and positive, if you try to force positivity when that's not actually how you're feeling, it will backfire and it will actually create an explosion of negative thoughts and feelings. So again, like with the working out example, if you work out too hard and you overstretch your muscles, you're going to have a lot of pain, right? So I want you to think about this like mental, emotional working out. If we try to go too quickly from negative thoughts to overly positive thoughts, in the brain, you're actually going to create something called cognitive dissonance, which is going to anchor you down into those negative thoughts, and they're going to start amplifying. And it's going to be even more difficult to shift your mindset and to create positive thoughts. So what we're going for is something that is neutral to positive. So one of the thoughts I see a lot on these from our clients is, I blew it on that interview, right? And so that's a pretty negative thought. If somebody's thinking, I blew it on that interview, they're probably going to have feelings of anxiety, worry, anger, right? And then the behavior is going to be something along the lines of playing the interview through in their minds, dissecting their performance. And then that's going to lead to other thoughts, things like, I'm never going to get the kind of job I want. This is going to take forever. What if I run out of my financial resources? My husband or wife is going to be angry with me. All sorts of things like that. So if somebody's thinking their automatic thought is, I blew it on that interview, an example of something that's healthier to think would be something along the lines of, I did my best on that interview, and I trust that if I keep practicing what I'm learning, my interview performance will improve. So one of the things that we offer at the Hired Executive is some interview coaching, right? Where we teach specific skills and tools to use in the interview process. So that would be something that the person could then think of doing in the behavior section, right? Reference back to the notes with the interview coach. Think about the positive things that they did in the interview. So oftentimes our brains will point out the negative. In fact, we're biologically designed to do that. So we like to think that we're very evolved, and in many ways we are, but our brains also can still be quite primitive. So we all have a very strong survival instinct that kicks in. And that survival instinct creates something that's called the negativity bias in psychology. What that means is we're hardwired actually to notice the negative before we notice the positive. So we need to train our minds to start to notice and pay more attention to the positive. So one of the things I ask our clients to do all of the time, but especially actually when they are beating themselves up after an interview, is to make a list of everything that they did well in the interview. People resist it a bit. So it sounds like a simple thing to do, but people will resist it. It's very difficult for people to write down what they've done well, because their brains really want to take them to focus on the negative things. The problem with that is the more we focus on the ways that we feel we made mistakes, dropped the ball, performed poorly, the more negative feelings that creates. And then the more static interference there is in taking aligned action to create the result that we want. So one way I see this show up for people is they'll go in an interview. Oh, did somebody have a question?
I heard somebody talking.
Yeah, I did too. And Craig, did you say that there was a question in the chat or no?
Yeah, it came a while ago from Yuri. The question is, how would you suggest dealing with an opportunity that has just closed?
Yuri, would you mind popping on and giving me a little bit more context so I can give you the best response possible?
Well, thank you. So I'm sure others may have had this type of experience where you're pursuing a role and, you know, it's stretched out to 3 or 4 months. And then for a mirage of reasons, you didn't get the role, whether it was like internal to the company, they decided to make a different decision. They decided to go in another direction. They were bought out by a PE firm, or you know, they just decided to give the role to somebody else at the last minute. And so, I mean, I was referencing in my mind when you were saying, you know, you have to take a look at the opportunity, right? And this is the exact opposite of that, right? So now the opportunity closed, and sometimes you know why, and sometimes you don't, right? And so how do you put a positive spin on that in your mind?
That's a great question. Okay, so a couple of things. When we have to transform a challenge into an opportunity, usually it does not appear to be an opportunity, right? That's a reason why we have to transform it. So would you be willing to share what your own thoughts were? I assume you've had this situation happen. When that's happened to you, what was your automatic thought about that?
Automatic thought?
Yeah.
Excuse the French, shit. You know, and then it goes down from there, right? And then you kind of try to refocus yourself on other opportunities that you're working on, and I mean, at least that's what I do, and try to, you know, focus on how those could work out. But you know, you still kind of have that drag, if you will, of the one that just, you know, closed on you.
Yep. So part of this is being real with yourself about what you're thinking and how you're feeling. So feelings are something that people require a lot of support to learn how to manage. And my background and training is as a therapist for many, many years. A lot of people don't learn how to properly deal with their feelings. It's not something that's modeled for us in this country very well. It's not something that most people grow up with a lot of support around. So one of the most important things to understand about feelings is that they are little energy like sensors inside of your body that you need to do something with. So the first thing I have our clients do in a situation like that is do something to move the energy through. Physical activity and being outdoors, I think, are the two best ways to discharge that energy. If you don't move through the feeling states, what will happen is you'll try to go on and focus on the next opportunity, and your mind's going to keep bringing you back in. And you're going to be feeling whatever feelings you're feeling in response to that situation. And your mind is going to keep creating thoughts about it. So the first thing to do is to be honest with yourself about your feelings. In that kind of situation, it's appropriate to be frustrated, maybe even angry, to feel disappointed. And so we have to be real with ourselves about our feelings. That's step one. Step two is to find something to do to move those feelings through you, especially when we're feeling angry. Anger is a powerful emotion, and it really needs to be channeled out of the body. So when you feel angry, sitting down and meditating quietly is not the appropriate course of action. Some people who have meditated for years and years and years can transmute the energy of anger that way. But anger is really an action-oriented feeling, so it requires action to move it. So if you're feeling angry in response to that, you would want to get outside, maybe get a good workout, or even just go for a walk. Being out in nature really helps. So depending on where you live, sometimes that's easier than others, but if you can get outside and move your body, that's step one to release the energy. Once you've released the energy, then you want to work on accepting things that you don't have control over. So in life, there are many situations that we would like to have influence and control over that we don't. So a situation like this is an unwanted reality. We may feel that we were very well qualified for the job. Our mind may want to close that loop in terms of, well, why wasn't I selected? Or I should have been selected. I'm actually a better fit for this role than whoever it was that got the job. But at the end of the day, we have to really, kind of be honest with ourselves about what we can and can't control. And the truth is we can't really control much in this life. Other than ourselves and our own actions, we can't control anything outside of ourselves. So sometimes when faced with an unwanted reality, such as this situation, we just have to remind ourselves, this isn't the outcome that I want. However, there's nothing I can do to influence or change this. Therefore, I'm choosing to let it go. So when your mind starts trying to take you back and close that empty loop, that's when you have to say to yourself, this is not a productive use of my energy. I can sit here and play this tape forward again and again and again, or I can remind myself, I don't have control over this. This is an unwanted reality. Get up, move around for a minute, shake off any feelings, and then align your action back to your goal, right? So that opportunity didn't work out. Okay, great. Now I'm going to focus all of my energy on the next opportunity, right? Or who's in my network that I could reach out to and, do a Zoom call with or go have a coffee with. What else have I, maybe not been taking advantage of that I could maybe sign up for a networking event or reach out for support or even connect with somebody else? Do you want to take that energy and give your mind something else to do with that energy besides replay it in your mind? Does that answer your question, Yuri?
Yes, that's helpful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions in response to what I just shared?
There were a couple of messages on the chat. One's a quote. Jeff shared a quote by Nelson Mandela saying, "I never lose. I either win or learn." Yep. And Julia wrote, "So many roles are who you know rather than what you know."
That is very true. Exactly. And so that's why it's important with the mindset work to develop a thick skin, because whether or not you get selected for a role oftentimes doesn't have a whole lot to do with your skills. Of course, you have to have the core skills to perform the role, but many times it is who you know, right? And it also has to do with who the other candidates for the same job know, right? And their relationships. So it's important to work on not taking this process personally. I know it's very hard. It feels very personal, especially when you are going through the interview process for a role that you're very excited about, that you feel is a great fit. It's hard to not take it personally when you're not selected. But these tools can help you to realize that, sometimes things don't work out, and that can be painful. It can be stressful. But if you can try to lean into any belief systems you may have, if you're religious or spiritual, that can help as well. I know it can be annoying and frustrating to hear things like everything happens for a reason, and that may not be your belief system. But if you can try to find some sense of faith and trust that you will find your way into the right role that is meant for you. And if that's not happening again and again and again, almost always that's an indication that mindset support is needed. And it's important to remember that we all need mindset coaching. I've been teaching mindset coaching and working as a mindset coach for almost 20 years. And I still work with my own mindset coaches. Even though I have a high level of mastery with teaching this, I have my own subconscious mind that keeps things out of my awareness. So it's important to remember that very successful people work with their mindset. Most professional sports teams have mindset coaches. Every successful person that we know, that we see, the prominent public figure, works with their mindset. So if high level successful people are doing that, we all, in my opinion, need to be doing that as well, right? Because there's always things that are coming up in our subconscious that are interfering with what we're doing and our ability to achieve our goals. And the reason why I framed this in peak performance is mindset work applications. So I'm not talking about mindset work in the sense of somebody is clinically depressed, very anxious, can't get out of bed and function. What we're talking about here is peak performing your mindset, really getting your mindset into the best possible place it can be, so you can shorten the curve on how long it takes to get into the next opportunity. So it's using mindset work in a very empowered way. How can we take your mindset from good to great so you can get your outcomes even faster? And that's really important to think about, because a lot of times people will resist mindset work. They'll say things like, I don't really need this. This isn't a good use of my time. I just need to focus all of my energy on the strategy. I'm good. I've got it. I don't have any negative thoughts. I always know that people need a lot of mindset work when they tell me that they don't have any negative thoughts. We all have negative thoughts. Again, I've been teaching this for 20 years. I still have negative thoughts. So it's important to be willing to be honest with ourselves. That's really how we create the outcomes that we want. And when we can recognize those negative thoughts and be aware of them, that's what helps us to create the change. What happens for most people is the negative thoughts quietly operate in the background and create self-sabotage. And it shows up in very subtle ways, oftentimes ways we don't realize.
So Mariel, there's another comment in the chat from Steve. He said, exactly, Jeff. And if one is perfectly suitable for the position or overqualified for that role, then typically the decision is based on intangibles, which don't usually get discussed with us during the interview process, such as cultural fit, personality alignment, etc. So we shouldn't beat ourselves up over the intangibles, because if we were genuine during our time with them, then we did our best.
That's right. And that is so important to remember. All you can do in an interview is do your best, right? So it's on you to take the time to research the company, research the role, be really clear on how your expertise up till this point in your career matches what the role is looking for. It's your job also to do the mindset work, to manage your energy. So to go into the interview with grounded energy as much as you can. But beyond that, you can't control somebody else's decision-making process. You can't control the intangible factors that they're looking at. You also can't really control whether or not somebody likes you, and not everybody is going to like you. Sometimes it's a good fit in terms of skills, but personality, it's a mismatch. And isn't it better actually to find that out at the beginning before you're in the role? Because that's one of the things that creates an enormous amount of distress for people. I'm sure we've all had the experience of being in a role where it's a personality mismatch, and that's not helpful. And what happens then, and Craig can speak to this, the statistics are once an executive is in transition, if they're not thoughtful about the role that they take, it's very likely that they're going to be back in transition again. Is it within 12 months, Craig, or 18 months?
Yeah, within 18 months.
Within 18 months. So then you just start the cycle all over again. And if you have to go through this process several times within the span of a couple years, then it starts to really take a toll on one's self-confidence and self-esteem. So if it's not a good personality fit, it's just better to know that right off the bat. And it's also really important for you to be honest with yourself. You are interviewing them just as much as they are interviewing you. And that also will really shift your energy in the interview process. So of course, we need to be respectful. We need to allow the interviewer to be leading the conversation, but it's important for you to be asking your questions instead of showing up and being energetically in more of a submissive role where you're thinking and feeling things like, oh my gosh, I hope they give me the job. Does that make sense?
So Mariel, there's a question here. Are there any publications that you recommend to review to better understand these principles? Somebody posted C Mindset by Carol Dweck. If you have any other.
Yeah, that's a good book. But honestly, a lot of people want to read books about these subjects. And although that can be helpful to do, the most important thing to do is actually use this process that I just taught you. Reading books keeps it very mental and up in your mind. And these tools aren't going to help you if you're just thinking about it. It's the equivalent of wanting to get stronger and watching workout videos without actually working out. It's not about reading and understanding material. It's about using this process and doing it every single day and being aware of the thoughts that you're having that are sabotaging you in the process. People don't always like that answer because they want to avoid doing this tool. Craig, are there other questions in the chat?
We've covered what's in the chat so far.
Okay. Does anybody have questions about this tool? It's really important to me that you guys walk away from this with the ability to use this.
Mariel, can you quickly go through the process once again?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great.
Yep. Okay. So at the top of this, you write the word situation. And you come up with something very specific. So the situation is not looking for a job. The situation is something specific that happened that day, maybe the day before. And you write that down. When you're doing this tool, usually it's because something frustrating or upsetting has happened. So you write that down and then you ask yourself, okay, what was I thinking about this? Not what do I think I should have been thinking, not what do I want to be thinking, but what was I actually thinking? And you write that down very specifically.
Can you give a working example, Mariel?
Yeah, so the example that we had before, I blew it on the interview, or I wish I hadn't have blown it on this interview. Then you go over here where the feelings are and you write down how you're feeling. And then you write down, what are you actually doing in response to those feelings?
There's a good question in the chat, Mariel, from Richard. He says, is it better to capture your thoughts, feelings, behaviors at the time that they occur or at a designated time at the end of the day?
That's a great question. So it's easier if you capture this at the time that it's occurring. If you don't have the opportunity to do that, then you can do it at the end of the day. But it will be easier for you if you try to do this in the moment that you're actually having the distress, because you'll have more access to the specific thoughts, feelings, and actions. So the first time you run through it, you just do what's automatically occurring. The second time you do it, you ask yourself that question, what's a healthier way I can think about this? What's a more empowering way I could think about this? That's then where you start trying to change your thoughts. A lot of times as you start going through the process of being more conscious and aware of your thoughts, you'll find that you'll have the same feeling. So if in the first version you were feeling anxious, you may still feel anxious, but what you're going to find is the intensity of that emotion is going to go down. So if your automatic thoughts were producing anxiety like around like a level 7 or 8, then when you redo this process, it's going to take your anxiety down maybe to a 4 or a 5. When you get the level of intensity of your emotions down, then you can get back into taking aligned actions to move yourself closer to the outcome. So every time you do this, you do it twice. Once with the natural just reaction that you're having, and then the second time is where you try to create change. Other questions about this tool?
Hi, This is Melissa. Mariel, I have a question
Melissa.
about the last comment you made about taking aligned actions to move closer to outcome. Can you provide a specific example on that? So is it about, when you say take action, is it actually do something so that I will feel happier, right?
Yes.
Or changing that thought, or is it just more about changing my thoughts just to feel better? I guess I'm not saying that very clearly, but
no, you
anyway.
are. I got you. You are clear, actually. So it's both. Okay. So first, you may need to do something that just helps you feel better. So if you're feeling distressed, before you get back into taking action that relates to the job search process, you may just need to go outside. You may need to do something that's fun for you. You may need to go work out. You may need to go hang out with somebody that's important to you. You may need to watch something that makes you laugh, just to shift your emotional state. And then once you do that, then you can get back into taking aligned action towards the outcome in terms of your job search process. So that may be reaching out and networking with somebody. That may be going to a networking event. That may be following up with somebody who wanted to make a connection for you. That may be researching on LinkedIn, right? So that there's the actions that are related to the job search process, but then there's also other actions that you can take just to shift your emotional state to feel better. When we feel better, we naturally create better outcomes. One of the things that's important to remember before you go into an interview is to make sure that you're in the best energy that you can be in, right? So if you've done something that elevates you, that lifts you up, that gives you energy before you go into that interview, you're going to perform in a very different way than if you walk into that interview stressed out, rushed, thinking about things that have been maybe upsetting you earlier that morning. So the actions are both related to the job search process and then just related to feeling better generally.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mariel, there's a question from Andrew. What's the name of this mindset improvement process?
So this process actually comes from cognitive behavioral therapy. So it's the cognitive model. The way I'm teaching it here, though, is not so much therapeutic as it is a tool just for shifting your thoughts.
Okay, thanks.
Are there other questions? Craig, are there any other questions?
No, not in the chat, no.
Okay. All right, so then this tool is used to be able to be much more aware of your inner dialogue as you go through this whole process. So that way you can just be really empowered to create the outcomes that you're wanting as you're navigating through the job search process. And if there aren't any other questions, I think that wraps up.
So we have 10 minutes.
Okay, yeah, there's 10 minutes left, so please ask questions. So Mark Bennett asks, what are the next steps?
Yeah, basically, yeah, super fascinating. One is, are there ways to just obviously directly to go to you guys and say, okay, how do we get started? But are there other places to, to learn more about this and to, just to go into this? I'm really fascinated by it because, while you were talking about it, I saw the resonance of cognitive behavior therapy in it.
Mm-hmm.
I read Carol Dweck's book a long time ago, and I've always been applying that personally. And now I'm in this situation where I'm now trying to apply it in this particular context. And this is, like I said, resonating greatly. So I do want to contact you guys directly, but is there anything else, that you suggest for people to do?
You know what, Mariel and Craig, if you can just share what your program's all about. I mean, what do you do in the program? How is it structured, et cetera?
Mariel, take it away.
I'll let you take that, Craig.
Yeah, so it's the Hired Executive is an 8-week high-touch, individualized program to help fast track executives back into the workplace. So what we've done is we've identified that there's 8 critical areas that need to be mastered in the job search process. And I like to use the analogy of a watch. You know, if you take off the back of a watch, all those parts are all machined to perfection and they all work in unison. But if just one piece stops working, the entire watch is going to stop. So it's the same thing with the job search process. There's 8 critical areas that need to be mastered. And if one is not firing on all cylinders, it can potentially sabotage the entire process. So we've gone out and we've found experts in each of these 8 critical areas. And our goal is to give our clients everything they need and nothing they don't in the most condensed time period possible. And because people go through one-on-one, it's very easy for us to customize, individualize, and make that person's experience specifically wonderful for them. Anything else you want to add, Mariel?
Could you give us an outline of those 8 steps, just so people kind of see if what all those cylinders are?
Sure. So there's clarity. So we say soul search before job search. So a lot of people who come to us they've been working for 10, 15 or more years, and they're just because they're the VP of technology or VP of finance doesn't mean that they're the VP of the job search process. And so these 8 areas, so there's clarity, there's mindset, there's personal branding, LinkedIn, networking, salary negotiations, winning the interview, and of course your resume. So we have a combination of trying to teach people to fish and hand them the fish where we can do that. We obviously can't have the interview for you, so we have to teach you how to fish in that situation. But we've also learned that people hate writing resumes. It's not their skill set, and they don't really want to spend time doing that. So we've partnered with the #1 resume writing service in the country, and they do that. They do that for you. So they write your resume, they update your LinkedIn profile, and we hand that quote unquote fish back to you.
Is that included in the package price, as it were?
Yeah, that's correct. Everything's included. Okay. Mariel, do you want to add anything?
I don't think so.
Okay, so how do they find out more about it? Go onto your website, reach out to you?
Yeah, so we offer, Mariel can explain this, that we offer a complimentary strategy call. And Mariel, why don't you explain a little bit about that?
Craig, actually, if you could take that would be helpful. There's a little bit of noise outside.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, so we offer a complimentary 45, 60-minute strategy call where we dive deep into your situation, background, where you're at, what the goals are. And really the goal of that call is to find out if there's a good fit, a good alignment between what you're looking for and what we can offer. If we think that we can support you in this process, then we'll discuss next steps and what that would look like. And if we don't feel that we're a good fit, then we'll do our best to try to point you in the direction of particular resources that would be a better fit for you. So anybody who wants to learn more, they can reach out to me. My email address is craig@thehiredexecutive.com, and we can find time to have the strategy call set up on the calendar. And Mariel actually does that strategy call.
And Richard has a question. What's the most effective way to assess your mindset, and if you're improving your mindset over a period of time?
That's a great question. I think honestly, the best way is to do that tool that I taught you today and do it every single day. And you will see, if you keep it in a notebook, you'll notice a significant progression as you look at the first rendition of that tool. Every day you'll see naturally it will create change if you're doing it every day. And that's the best way to track it. It will only work if you write it down. It does not work to do it in your mind. And it's really best used if you're doing it every single day.
Okay, what other questions are there? We've got them for a few more minutes. Ask away. Anybody?
Sorry. What's the most effective way to assess your mindset and if you're improving your mindset over a period of time?
Yeah,
I just answered that
Mariel
one,
just
Craig.
answered that. Yeah.
Reading that.
Anybody else? Questions? Don't be shy. Our group is not shy.
Well, I think
I think
was,
everybody's maybe already on holiday mode.
I think it was just
It is
a
the
great.
Friday before the holiday.
I think it was just a great
Jeff.
presentation.
I think there was one from Jeff earlier also asking if it was related to mindfulness.
Yes, absolutely. So mindfulness is a significant portion of this. In order to be able to accurately observe your thoughts and your feelings and your actions, you have to be able to, kind of calm yourself down and get quiet and be mindful of what's going on in the first place. So yes, absolutely.
Hey, and
this is actually a really good question from Bob. If you're doing
Yeah.
the exercise daily, should you start with the same situation each day? The answer to that is no. You actually want to be very, very specific with the situation. So if you use a general situation, you're going to get a general kind of feeling as you move through the exercise. So what you want to do is be very laser focused, extremely specific with the situation, because that's how you're going to get the clarity on where the self-sabotaging thoughts are coming in.
Great. Any other questions?
Yeah, Mariel, this is Melissa again. So does this work if you also focus on those areas where you felt really good about the situation and then wanted to document how it goes that way?
Okay, I'm so glad that you asked that. So that is the next way that you can use this tool, is to use it to build up a positive mindset. So yes, if you go through a process and you feel great about it, you can use this tool to anchor that in and to build that and grow it.
Awesome.
But
Well,
Bob has,
yeah, but Bob's question was already answered.
if you're doing the daily exercise, should you start with the same situation?
Yeah, I already answered that one.
Okay. All right, everyone. What we're going to do is we're going to send out the link to the hired executive. We're going to send out the recording and then the contact information for Craig and Mariel. And we're going to miss you next Friday for the Thanksgiving holiday, but we'll be back the following Friday. And Julia Kozlov and I are going to talk about best practices. So what we're going to do is send out a note to you, ask you to send back questions and best practices that you've developed. And then we're just going to have kind of a different event.